here to talk to you today about success. And success is one of those things that each of us in here will define very differently. We all have a different set of values, we all have a different perspective, and we all have different goals in life. We're here to talk about success during disaster response, and that often is put in our context as responders are safely able to respond to events, and as the community is able to be welcomed home to their new sense of normalcy. To do that today, we're going to use the context of the Fort McMurray wildfires that both of us had the honor to go up there and support the community. So we're going to take you back to just over a year ago as the wildfire was coming into Fort McMurray. So it was Tuesday morning, and you would have got up, you would have got ready for work, you would have known there was a wildfire on the edge of the city, not necessarily expecting. If you were lucky enough to be home, this is what you may have encountered.
Hasty exit. That might have been the last time. Might have been the last time I ever saw my house right there.
It's like Armageddon here. There's nobody on the road. Nothing. Absolutely nobody.
Cars are burnt. There's people on the side of the road with crying babies and dogs and broken cars and no gas and no food. And it's like it's in a movie. I've never seen anything like this in my life.
The end of days. Literally. If you look around, there's people panicking.
But I need to show you, it's not just on the border. This is Fort McMurray burning this afternoon. We're right in the thick of it. This is Highway 63, the main corridor, and we're in downtown. We're not far from a fire station, to be honest.
This is insane. Holy oh, you can feel the heat. Holy shit. This is fucking crazy.
Successfully evacuated 88,000 people. No one is hurt and no one has passed away right now. I really hope that we get to the end of this and we can still say that. We are here. We are strong, and we will keep doing our job. Thank you very much.
I think many of us recall the experience with Fort McMurray. With it being very close to the one-year anniversary, obviously these are the types of images that have been on the news in the last week. For those of us who were up there, it was a time of remembrance, a time to reflect back on what happened in Fort McMurray. You listen to Chief Darby Allen's voice, and I think we can appreciate and recognize the exhaustion, the emotion that was in Chief Allen's voice at the time. Canada Task Force 2 was deployed and we arrived Wednesday, May the 4th. And now it's time to prioritize. So prioritization, what is it that we have to take care of first and foremost? People, making sure that everybody's out. Now once that's done, our goals of prioritization change. We have to ensure food, shelter, some sort of structure within the Emergency Operations Center, or in their case called the Regional Emergency Operations Center. When people were gone, a priority became pets. People were concerned about making sure pets were cared for. Were they accounted for? Were they taken out of the community? Food, making sure we fed ourselves. Making sure that we fed not only the members of Canada Task Force 2, but all of those joining members of other agencies that came to assist in that community. We did some scope creep. We recognize that now. We recognize that we went beyond our capabilities in some applications. And the two most common ones that we've referred to when we talk about scope creep is when we talk about feeding or food and when we talk about medical. We have to look at success. We have to look at what can we learn from things that we would perhaps do differently. When we talk about food, and we as Canada Task Force 2, we've got a wonderful system that is prepared to feed and care for our own members, which is up to 150 members. Some of you are in here today. At the height of the event, we're capable of feeding up to 600 people per day, and that runs 24 hours a day. In Fort McMurray, we were feeding 3,000 to 3,500 people per day. It absolutely stretched our ability to maintain that. We would do it again today. We would do it to make sure that people had what they needed. And from a medical perspective, we took with us the trained professionals that were there initially to take care of ourselves, to take care of the team, and that too expanded far beyond its capabilities. And lastly, in the role of the Emergency Operations Center, we went in and prioritized our roles into assisting a community to get them back in. And Chief Henry said in the introduction about returning people to their own community, and we're going to talk about how we return people to the roles within the Emergency Operations Center. Working us out of a role. Novel concept. When you go in to assist with a community, you're going in truly to assist. And to assist, you have to have an end game. And our end game was to get us out. Our deployable requirements or our parameters are to be in and out of a community within 21 days. And we were in and out of Fort McMurray in 19. Our goal is to get people back into the community, back into the roles that they would either typically do within their own municipalities, or people that are willing to take on the roles, learn what those roles are, and in a series of days and weeks, we train you to fill those roles, and we slowly walk away. When we talk about defining success, we've had the experience in Slave Lake, we had the experiences in Calgary, and at Fort McMurray, things were a little different. For us, defining success was about being in the community when the community came home. And Slave Lake, what a wonderful honor it was, and I say that with all sincerity, to have literally a parade, and for those of you that were there, you'll recall this parade of the community when first responders left. And in Calgary, during the floods, there was signs all over the communities that first responders were able to see, and they could see firsthand the appreciation that that community had for their work. In Fort McMurray, as a team for Canada Task Force 2, it was determined early on we were not going to be in the community when the community was to return. We had to define success differently. We had to set realistic expectations for the members of what it was that we were about to achieve, and that was not going to mean we were there when the people came home. One of the personal successes is having tough conversations. Emergency operations centers can be difficult. They can be stressful. They can be emotional. And one success is getting through it. Facing difficult conversations, facing the stress with little to no sleep, knowing who it is that you're working with. The picture on the left-hand side of your screen is called Black Sands Lodge. Sorry for the flashback to you that were there. Black Sands Lodge, for those that aren't familiar with it, is the Banff Springs of Fort McMurray. Massive, beautiful facility where the executives from the oil companies would stay when they went to visit the camps. Black Sands Lodge in itself would be a significant event in most communities. And at 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, when the call came in that there was fire impinging on Black Sands Lodge, a decision and a conversation had to have in regards to what were we going to do. You think it was a difficult conversation, a stressful conversation? By all means. And the decision was, it needs to go. There'll be no activity put on that fire, despite other people's efforts and desires to put out the fire, because that's what we're trained to do. The picture to the right is Black Sands Lodge, 6 a.m. the same morning. Tough conversations, defining success.
The other challenge that we had is when our team came home. We sent 3 different waves of people up, and we made sure the team was greeted each and every day when they arrived home at the airport. We had to teach them, many of them wanted to go back, and they wanted to finish what they started. They felt like they hadn't done enough, and they hadn't done enough to help the community, and they wanted to go. We knew we couldn't send everybody back. We weren't going to be up there long enough. We weren't going to have that many waves of individuals, and the more locals that came into the community, the longer that we wanted the community to be recovering the community. We had to teach the members how to find success in what they did and how to look at, no matter the length of time that they were deployed, how to look at that deployment and see the difference that they made, even though they didn't get to finish everything that they wanted to finish. The other piece that we often hear, especially when we look at the media and some of the reviews start after events, is we hear an analogy that an event was successful and the response to an event was successful because we didn't lose any lives. And I think in this business, we have to be really careful with that. It's not necessarily a good measure for us. We're going to have events where we do the best that we can, and our response is well organized, and our response goes really well, and unfortunately, we're going to lose lives. For those of you that were familiar with Slave Lake, we unfortunately did lose a pilot during the response to Slave Lake, about halfway through the response. And I think we need to be careful that we don't define this as an unsuccessful response. The response to Slave Lake was successful. It was just a tragic consequence of that. The other thing is that as it gets to just over a year after Slave Lake happened, that we have to be really careful to understand is that now is the time that we start to look back on the response and we start to question our decisions. We start to question the decisions with all of the information, and we didn't have all of the information when we made some of the decisions. It's also the time for armchair quarterbacks that weren't necessarily involved in the response to start questioning what people did. It would have been really easy for Ken and I to come up to here and talk to you guys today and give you a 15-minute presentation on all the things that we could have done better. And in some ways, that's actually easier. I think in this profession, we naturally go to what we can do better because we want to improve and want to do better the next time. We didn't do that, and I think we have to be careful that we look at events and celebrate the successes in those events and redefine that success as we continue through.
Just take a moment to read that. I think it's quite self-explanatory. To echo Chief Henry, we had the ability to have the title of Commanders of Canada Task Force 2. It's the folks that are here in the room that were there. It's the folks in Fort McMurray that absolutely did the majority of the work to ensure that that community got back. It's the folks that are still there today, striving to ensure that their community gets back on its feet better than it was prior to the event. So thank you to everybody here that participated in that.